When I posted my written post in the community tab about the racism of many non-blacks who call themselves Muslims, I wasn't calling many of them non-Muslim because I'm just a mean person. It's because many of them who aren't black or white seem to think that their color bias is somehow a natural human instinct. And they don't believe that nature is God, so this means they think Allah himself created human beings with this bias because they can find this bias everywhere all over the planet. The prevalence of a sin does not make it not a sin anymore, but the inability to avoid it might make it not a sin anymore, at least not a sin for which Allah will interrogate the subject on Judgment Day. Many non-black Muslims don't know that the NOI believes that Allah came to earth as a person. Now, this does change a religion into something other than Islam. It can't be Islam after that, but they're unaware. So their awareness that the NOI is of a different religion must come from something else. Do you know what it is that they do know? They heard that the NOI preaches another religion and that the white man is the devil and that black people are superior to them. This is what a lot of them have heard. Thus, they hear a message of racial inequality, but in the opposite direction of what they're accustomed to hearing from the colonizers and our kidnappers. And I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. Although these folks, many of them Muslims as well, were colonized by Europeans, don't make the mistake of thinking that if, in fact, it had been Africans that had gone and colonized them, they will be looking up to blackness and looking down on whiteness. That is not true. If you want to know what that's about, look at my videos on white supremacy and shaitan. It's a different talk for another day. We actually have proof of that. See, Abyssinia colonized Yemen. That was not long-lived. What's the reason for that? Moving on. The awareness that the NOI preaches about a reverse racial inequality is all they need to hear to say that it's blasphemy. Now, if that is blasphemy, and if blasphemy amounts to disbelief, well, then their idea that Allah created human beings with some pro-white, anti-black color bias is also blasphemy. They're walking around with this idea that Allah is as racist or as colorist as they are, and that Allah isn't fair in reality. But it's okay in their minds because as they see Allah being unfair, he was unfair to their advantage. But blasphemy is blasphemy. As far as I know, it amounts to disbelief in Islam as it does in the other faiths of the book. So don't correct me, patient black Muslims, and tell me to be patient with them. Don't tell any other black Muslim to be patient with them. I already am patient with them, but blasphemy is blasphemy. If these semi-Negro Muslims are our brothers, then let's teach them the lesson they need to learn. If they can learn it, they're our brothers. If they can't, they've given up brotherhood, not us. We have every right to teach them. When it comes to non-black Arabs calling us slaves as an example, they do this absent-mindedly. They've gotten used to it, but they do know that it's wrong when they think about it. But the way to teach them is to call them the T word right off the bat. No chaser, no hesitation. And when they balk, tell them that though you are fully aware that they aren't terrorists, and if they were, it wouldn't have to do with their color, that they are also fully aware that we aren't slaves and that our color wouldn't make us such if we were. Now, many of them I have found can actually learn this lesson once they are patient enough to fuck the shuck up and let you finish your sentence before they reply. So many of them actually do remain our brothers and become better brothers afterwards because they can learn that lesson. Now, the most stubborn, staunch Bedouin will not learn that lesson. Screw him anyway. Fair is fair. Additionally, there will be those who don't learn, as I just mentioned, and they are blaspheming disbelievers according to what I've heard about blasphemy. So I'll be the first to tell you to let them go. They're not our brothers. I'm not making takfir on them. They're doing so on themselves. I will be the first to tell you that the Bedouin, not the city dweller, but the Bedouin is more staunch in his assumptions that lighter is better and darker is worse. We black folks have been patient already. Time for a criteria to be presented to them so we can see who really are our brothers and sisters and who aren't. And it's based on a choice they can make, not something involuntary like our skin tone or theirs. We've been more than patient. To the one telling me to be patient, I am black, but because of my resemblance to the brown Muslims who express these cracker notions of white normality and non-white pathology, black pathology specifically, and non-white abnormality based on distance from whiteness and proximity to blackness or the verse, I am now less trusted by other black folks every year, Muslim or not, and I might not be welcome one day in some parts of our home continent as a returning African. Someone I know and trust is about to go and scout out a place in East Africa to see if someone like me will be welcome there or not. It shouldn't be a necessary step, but it is. We can't explain Islam as the solution it is to black people because these damn Wyatt-adjacent wannabe white sellouts with their wet dreams about a Wyatt Jannah with a color barrier to entry are in the masajid in the USA, promoting the new Wyatt converts, who didn't ask for this, by the way, to spokesperson right off the bat because it whitens the image of Islam in the Western media cameras. In masajid, for which we're the security teams and protectors, in masajid, they can have open and functioning legally because of the work that black folks, Muslim and non, did decades ago, while telling each other to keep a distance from us so that their populations don't wind up getting darker in a place like North America or Western Europe. Now, to me, it's about more than just interracial marriage. I don't particularly see that as a goal. But I'm pointing out that their reasons for being so staunchly against it or white supremacy. What's worse is that they try to Islamically justify it so that they won't have to correct it. They try to Islamicize their color bias and their white supremacy. If you read a hadith about any prophet like Musa or Adam or Isa being dark or black, peace be to those prophets, they want to fight. I had one tell me one day that if I was going to pick a Muslim name for one of our colleagues over here, that the name Ali was better than Adam. And I said, oh really? So the name of a Sahaba trumps the name of a prophet. Allah named a prophet. The Sahaba was named as such by his parents. And you want to sit up and tell me that one is better than the other? And this particular man that said this to me does not entertain racial bias. He's merely coming from assumptions that have never been questioned. What about those who actually entertain racial biases and don't know that? How dare they? Don't correct me or any other militant black Muslim about this because we're right and they're wrong. Go correct them and tell them they aren't our brothers and sisters until they change. One more thing, if you're Muslim and you aren't militant against this racial and color bias, the only good reason for that is to be unaware of it, and you pretty much got to be living under a rock for that to be the case. So if you're Muslim and aware of it, it's your duty to go hard against it, to not be soft on them just because they might all of a sudden go harder in the paint as Wyatt supremacists. So what? We got alt-right Wyatts accepting Islam and not even dropping the racial ideas about conservatism either. It used to be that when they accepted Islam, they were the most militant against the racial biases. You wouldn't even find Western Wyatt converts or reverts, if you like that term better, marrying each other because they weren't trying to lighten the population of Muslims in the West. And we black folks would have to tell them that it's not wrong for two of them to marry if they are compatible as individuals. We would have to tell them that. They would be our protectors and we would be theirs. They actually came in as brothers and sisters to us black Muslims, the fraternity and sorority, the spiritual siblinghood between black folks who accepted Islam and white folk who accepted Islam in North America was tighter than between any two other groups, to be honest, because they knew what it meant. And we knew what it meant. Now you've got some of them coming in as undercover racists in the name of conservatism, using the criminal records of black Muslims and white supremacists violence to justify the white supremacist violence in the first damn place. George Floyd wasn't 5HIT a few years before he died. He was a drug head pointing guns at pregnant black women and robbing them. Yeah, but see, when you actually are Muslim, you have the ability to point at him and say he wasn't fit at that time. Don't know what he was like at the time he died, except that he did not commit any capital crimes for which death was a penalty. But he paid for what he did do that the state told him to pay, for his crimes, and those crimes also were not why he died. He died because a cop knew him and didn't like him from the private security job they worked, and so sat on his knee. If I'd been a cop and I knew George Floyd from working private security with him, I probably would not like him either, but sat on his, would I sit with my knee on his neck until he passed out? I don't think I'd do that. If he's handcuffed, I would just keep my knee on his back. And if he didn't move, I wouldn't do anything to him. It's an arrest, not an execution. I, who promote the Malcolm X standard of reform, not the George Floyd standard of reform, but the Malcolm X standard of reform. I, who promote this, would not have done this to George Floyd in that circumstance. I, who promote the Malcolm X standard of reform, would not have snuck up behind Jordan Neely and put him in a chokehold for 15 minutes. The Marine, Penny, whose last name is too expensive for him, was choking a corpse for 12 of those minutes. Well, guess what? We got a Muslim who keeps on referring to George Floyd as Fentanyl Floyd like that's why he died. It isn't why he died. We got a Muslim who wants to keep ignoring white supremacy's legacy today, spitting the same Republican, Christian conservative talking points whenever it comes to race relations and racial justice. But he's Muslim. But he never wants to ignore any other worship of any other false deities. He lets this go. It's because to them a world without black people would be fine, despite the knowledge actually that idea comes from Shaitan, because he can't stand the resemblance to Adam, alayhi salam, and Eve. They don't care if these ideas come from the Shaitan. These white supremacist Muslims don't care if that idea comes from the Shaitan. He can whisper that idea and they listen to it. No resistance, as long as he is preaching that false faith. Black Muslims, I've said years ago, and I say today, it's okay to be fair, but it's not practical. It's not tactical to show these white supremacists and thobes and Kami Shawals any more patience. If you are patient, either hide it from them or weaponize that patience against them. These wannabe whites will either not learn anyway, or they'll learn from seeing that we have self-respect, but they never have and never will learn from seeing us patient with their assumptions. We already showed them patience, and they thought it was proof that their idea was okay. This is how they became no longer our brothers in faith, thinking that they were right in their very same biases that Allah outlawed. My takfir of them is not based on my anger. It's their takfir from themselves based on their own blasphemy. I simply don't want us accepting blasphemers as brothers. If they're going to blaspheme in their thoughts and beliefs, let's not help them and encourage them in that anymore, even tacitly. Assalamu alaikum. And just because the racist and the misogynist don't like it, black power and long live Africa. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, black out. Thank you for flying again with me on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.